This is Echoes of the Silk Road, where legends, dreams, and eerie bedtime tales unfold. Close your eyes, listen closely, and let the echoes guide you. The One Time I Didn't Listen, Part 1. The Whisper Begins. I've always trusted my gut. It's never led me wrong. That quiet tug deep inside, a subtle voice beneath the noise of everyday life. My mother called it the whisper. I didn't understand what she meant for years, but once you start hearing it, you never stop. It's not like a thought or a feeling you can reason away. It's different, like a sixth sense you can't ignore, no matter how loud the world gets. The whisper had been silent for a while. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I liked it that way. No surprises, no mysteries, just the steady hum of normalcy in the city. Then Drew moved in. I noticed him the first day. He showed up, moving boxes stacked by the elevator, careful and slow. He wore a faded jacket, eyes hidden beneath the brim of a cap, but when he looked up, there was something in his gaze, a quiet intensity that made my stomach tighten honestly. When our eyes met in the stairwell, he nodded politely. I shook his hand out of habit. That's when the whisper started again, cold and sharp, like ice and water running down my spine. I froze for a moment. Then I laughed it off. Maybe I was tired, or maybe I just imagined it. Who knows? Days passed, and Drew settled into the building. He was quiet, never noisy, no visitors, paid his rent early. You'd think I'd relax, but the whisper grew louder each day. It wasn't just a feeling. It was the little things. The way he always seemed to be watching, but never really watching. The strange noises above my ceiling late at night, soft thuds, rhythmic, like pacing or digging. Once I caught him taking out a large black bag, double bagged actually, dropping it in the dumpster. The bag thumped like it was heavy, like it held something solid. I told myself it was nothing. The whisperer was begging me to listen, but I plugged my ears with logic and routine. One night, the fire alarm jolted us all awake. Smoke poured from the vents, everyone spilled into the street, but Drew wasn't among the evacuees. His window was open, light on, but there was still no sign of him. Something told me I should leave it alone, that I probably should stay safe with the others, but the whisper pulled me back inside. Part 2. Something about Drew. I didn't start off afraid of him. It's important to say that, because fear paints everything in hindsight. You start connecting dots you didn't even see before. You rewrite moments with a trembling hand. But at first, Drew was just different, I would say. Not unfriendly, not aggressive, just wrong in a way I couldn't explain. He didn't match the rhythm of the building. You know how every place has a pulse, right? The way you recognize familiar footsteps from upstairs. The way certain pipes knock in the winter. The usual neighbor yelling at his dog. The old woman on every second floor cooking something with garlic every goddamn day. I mean, every damn day. Now, Drew disrupted that. His presence was like radio static beneath a love song, like he was always slightly out of phase with everything around him. The second time I spoke to him, I caught him in the laundry room. He had no clothes with him, just stood there, leaning against the washer like he was waiting for someone. Who knows who he was waiting for? I hesitated. It was late. Had to be close to midnight. I had a basket in my arms, headphones around my neck, trying to make it quick. When I stepped in, he looked at me like he'd been expecting me. "Hey," I said, not meeting his eyes. "Did I beat you to it?" He smiled just a little too slow. "No," he said, I'm just thinking." "Thinking? In a laundry room? With empty machines humming around them? What exactly are you doing?" So I nodded. moved past him, and loaded my clothes. The whole time, I felt him watching. Not staring exactly, but more like observing. Like he was trying to memorize how I moved, how long it took me to separate the dogs from the lights. It was kind of weird. Then, before I could say anything else, he said, "You ever hear things in the vents?" I paused. "What? What are you talking about?" "The vents." He repeated that a couple times. Sometimes at night, like talking. Not words, just rhythm. My skin prickled. Maybe someone left the radio on. He smiled again. "Yeah, maybe." I left early, laundry still damp. That whisper in my gut wasn't so quiet anymore. From that point on, I started paying attention. Not to what Drew did, but what he didn't do. Something was up. He never left the building for long. No groceries, no takeout, no deliveries. I'd hear him pacing above me sometimes. Always between the times of 2 and 4 a.m. But I never saw him carry anything in or out. His blinds stayed closed. His light came on like clockwork, 6:13 p.m., sure enough, every night. And sometimes I could swear it flickered, like candlelight, not bulbs. 3 weeks in, I heard yelling in the hallway. It was Mrs. Langley, the woman who lived in 3C across from Drew. Early 70s, lived in the building longer than most of us. The kind of neighbor who always had a plastic bag of cat treats in her purse. Even though we all know she didn't own a cat. She was standing outside his door, knocking hard. "You better not be listening again," she snapped. "I told you this ain't your business." I stayed hidden around the corner of the crazy old lady, listening. She waited, muttered something under her breath, then stormed off down the stairs. I never saw her again. Her apartment was cleared out a few days later. No assignment, no moving truck, just gone. The super said she decided to live with family, but he wouldn't say where, obviously. The next time I passed Drew, he smiled and said, "Some people talk too much." The whisper screamed in my chest, but I smiled back. That same week, the hallway light outside my door began to flicker. It wasn't the bulb. I changed it myself twice. The super said the wiring was old and unpredictable. Said it happened sometimes when the weather changed, but the weather hadn't changed. The light flickered when Drew passed by. Only then, and I mean every time. I tested it once just to be sure. I stood behind the peephole and waited. The hallway stayed still, lit in pale yellow, but as soon as I heard his soft, uneven footsteps coming from upstairs, the bulb began to shudder fast. Like a Morse code heartbeat. That's the closest thing I could compare it to. And as soon as his door clicked shut, it returned to normal. Steady, still. I tried to shake it off, tried to get out more. I told myself I was just overthinking, letting the whisper mutate into paranoia. But that night, I had a dream I hadn't had in years. I was 8 again, in the backyard, a humid summer evening in Georgia. Fireflies blinking in and out like dying stars, and I heard the whisper for the very first time. It didn't speak in words, just a feeling, like a breeze that knew my name. It pulled me away from the woods behind our house just a step or two. Nothing major, but I turned and walked toward the shed instead. That small change saved me, because 15 minutes later, the neighbor's Rottweiler broke through the fence and charged through the woods where I'd been standing. It mauled a stray cat, tore it to pieces before anyone could stop it. I didn't tell anyone what I felt, but watched the grown-ups gather and clean up the mess. But that night, my mother came into my room, looked me in the eye and said, "You felt it, didn't you?" I nodded. She sat on the edge of my bed. That voice you hear in your chest, never ignore it. Not ever. That's the whisper. And it's the only voice in this world that doesn't lie. I hadn't thought about that memory in over a decade. But ever since Drew moved in, it resurfaced more and more, like something was trying to wake me up. Not to danger exactly, but something that was out of place. Something unnatural hiding inside something perfectly ordinary. Drew was the ordinary. But what lived inside him What echoed in the space around him, that's what I was starting to feel. The hallway outside his apartment had a strange scent. It wasn't like rot or mildew, just something that didn't belong. It wasn't supposed to be there, like iron mixed with vinegar. Some nights, it was stronger than others. Once, when I walked past his door, I saw scratches on the lower half. Not deep or random, but parallel and vertical. Something about the width of 4 fingers. I bent down to look, and I swear to you, the wood was warm. Not just from the heater, either like it pulsed once beneath my palm. That was the first time I decided I needed to ask someone else if they noticed anything. I chose Alex, the guy from 2B. Laid back type, videographer, always more headphones, always said what he thought. I ran into him by the mailboxes and asked if he talked to the new guy in 3D. He laughed. Drew? No, man, that dude gives me cold steak energy. You ever eat steak too late in the day and it sits wrong in your gut? That's what I get from him. I chuckled. Relieved. Yeah, same. Alex lowered his voice. He keep knocking on my wall at 2 a.m., bro. 3 slow knocks. Always 3. I knock back once. He doesn't respond. Well, did you ask him about it? Yeah. He said it wasn't him. Alex paused, then muttered, last time it happened, I waited, didn't knock back. A minute later, I heard something behind the wall dragging his nails. He didn't laugh this time. That night, I kept the lights on, and the whisper didn't let me sleep. 3 nights later, Drew knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was just past midnight. I was about to kill the lights, and something made me freeze before I reached the switch. 3 knocks. Even, calm, measured. Not like a neighbor borrowing sugar or like a drunk pounding to be let in for some reason, whatever. Just patient. The whisper was immediate. It was loud, like someone inside me was shouting behind a thick wall. Don't open it. I moved to the door, looked through the peephole. He was just standing there. Hood down, hair slightly damp, eyes steady. He wasn't smiling. I didn't say anything, make a sound, or, well, I hardly even thought anything either. But he spoke. You heard it too, didn't you? His voice wasn't muffled through the door. It was too clear, like he was in the room already. I said nothing. It's getting louder, he said. It wants you to notice. He stood there for 10 more seconds, then walked away. Not a word more, just turned and vanished down the hall. I waited another 10 minutes before I opened the door. No sign of him, but the hallway light was flickering again, and this time it didn't stop. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. I watched the comedy, turned on every lamp in the apartment, made tea, cleaned the bathroom, anything to drown out the creeping sensation crawling up my spine like wet silk. But it didn't help. That whisper, that gut feeling wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a hum, a presence like being watched while pretending you're alone. I fell asleep sometime near 3 a.m. and dreamed of my childhood bedroom, of the night I disobeyed the whisper. It was a few months after the dog in the woods. I was 9. I had a friend from school. His name was Kenny. He lived 3 streets down. We'd been building a fort in the woods behind his house one night. We stayed later than we were supposed to. The air got heavy, and there was no birds, no bugs, no animals of any kind. It was a dead silence. You heard nothing but just the creak of the trees. It felt as though that was deliberate. Kenny wanted to keep playing, but the whisper inside me told me to leave. I felt sick, dizzy, and cold. I told him I was going home. He laughed, said I was being scared for no reason. I listened to him instead of the whisper. A few minutes later, a man stepped out from the brush, mid-40s, dirty shirt, yellow teeth, told us he was looking for his dog, asked if we'd seen it, then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The whisper was screaming. Kenny ran first, I followed. We didn't stop until we were both breathless behind his front door. We never saw that man again, but the next week, a girl from another county went missing. Her photo looked like the one that was on the flyer the school handed out. That was the last time I ignored the whisper. Until now. In the morning, there was a note slid under my door. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. One sentence, handwritten. He doesn't live alone in there. The handwriting wasn't Drew's. It was shaky, and it seemed like it was nervous, as if someone rushed when they were writing it. Almost like one had written it while looking over their shoulder. I almost left the building that day. I packed a bag, grabbed my laptop, wallet, some clothes, didn't overthink. I told myself I'd stay at a hotel, maybe visit my brother in Portland. Get out, breathe fresh air, regain perspective. But even as I unzipped my bag, I felt ridiculous. Leaving for over what? A stranger? Flickering lights, some old childhood fear? Come on now. I stared at my pack bag for a long time, then I unpacked it. Every item, one by one. The whisper didn't scream this time. It didn't even whisper. It waited. That afternoon, I walked to the end of the hallway, past my door, past the stairwell to the last apartment on the floor. Mrs. Langley's old unit, the one now empty or supposedly. The door was ajar, just slightly, not broken, not forced, just open wide enough to notice if you were looking for it. I glanced around, no one else in sight, and then I did something I still don't fully understand. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The apartment was dark, empty, but only at first glance. There were no boxes, no furniture, just thick, stale air, and the faint smell of vinegar. But the back room, the one facing Drew's apartment across the hall, had something strange. Scratches, dozens of them, along the wall closest to his unit, not random like before. These were purposeful. They formed a pattern. 4 vertical lines, then one slashing through the middle. Again and again, I reached out and touched one of the grooves. It was fresh. Splinters were still loose. The wall wasn't painted drywall, it was wood. Older than the rest of the building, like it had been preserved while everything else was modernized. And on the floor, something had been dragged. Not once, but many times. A long, narrow trail in the dust led from the far wall toward the door, like something had been pulled out and returned over and over. That's when I heard it. 3 knocks. From the other side of the wall, behind the scratches. It was steady and calm, right where Drew's apartment should have been. I left, didn't run, didn't scream, just walked out, closed the door, and locked my own behind me. My whisper was no longer a voice in my gut, it was something I felt in my teeth. That night, I tried to sleep on the couch. I couldn't. The air was wrong, charged, the lights was dim, then they surged back, and then I could swear I felt something brush on my leg. I jumped up, turned every light on, there was nothing there. But on the floor, just beneath where my foot had been, a scratch mark. It was small, looked like it was brand new. 4 vertical lines. I sat on the edge of my couch until morning, staring at the mark like it could move on its own. By the end of the week, 3 more notes were slipped under my door. Don't open it again. It wants your silence. He listens too much. No one ever saw who delivered them. There was no handwriting that matched. No camera in the bill never captured anything out of place. I asked the super. He said the security system had been failing for months. Said he was working on it. Then he looked at me long and added, you should be careful around the 1 to 3D. That was the last time he answered my knock. Part 3. Patterns in the dark. The hallway lights stayed off for 2 days. Not flickering, not dim, but just dead. The super said it was a breaker issue. Promised he'd fix it by Monday, but I didn't see him after that. Not in the stairwell, not outside, not in the lobby, not even in the maintenance room when he knocked. His tools were still there, I checked, and so was his radio. It was on, playing static. I started seeing patterns everywhere, not just scratch marks, but small things. Every morning, my silverware drawer was slightly open by exactly 2 inches. Every evening, my closet light was on, even though I never used it. My phone would ring once at 3:13 a.m., then go silent. No number, just a blank screen. And always, I could hear soft knocking through the vents 3 times, sometimes 4, followed by a pause, like someone was waiting for a reply. I bought a small whiteboard and started tracking the sounds, times, locations, smells, and lights. I wasn't even sure why. Maybe I thought I could make sense of it. Maybe I wanted to prove myself that I wasn't unraveling. But on the fourth night, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The dates and times I'd written formed a shape unintentionally. A spiral. It was perfect and tight, winding inward toward the center I hadn't marked. I looked at the center, and it was my name. Written without thinking, just scribbled as a label in the top corner. The whisper pulsed hard enough to make me dizzy. It wasn't a pattern I was tracking. It was a path I was being led down. On Friday night, the knocking changed. It didn't come from Drew's wall or the vents. It came from inside my apartment. I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth when I heard it. 3 slow knocks. From the hallway closet, I didn't move at first. The whisper surged so violently through my chest, I had to grip the sink. My reflection looked pale, almost green. My breath left frost on the mirror. Then a fourth knock, slightly faster, followed by something far worse, breathing. It wasn't heavy and not, I wouldn't say animalistic, just present. There was something there. Inside the walls, inside the closet, like someone exhaling right beside the wood. Then a voice, not Drew's and not mine, just a whisper. You ignored me. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even try to. I packed the bag again, but I didn't get far. As I opened my front door, I saw Drew standing at the end of the hall, facing me perfectly still. The hallway light above him flickered once, then stayed dark. He didn't move, not a single step. He didn't need to, because this time, the whisper didn't warn me about him. It warned me about what was behind me. Something cold, breathing. I slammed the door shut, locked it, pushed the chair against it, then I sat with my back to the wall, shaking until the sun came up. The next morning, I left the apartment. Didn't pack, didn't shower, just grabbed my keys and phone and left. But the city felt wrong too. Too loud in some places, too quiet in others. People looked through me on the sidewalk. At one point I asked a busser who stopped mid-song, stared me dead in the eye and whispered, "You're marked." I didn't even flinch. That's how far gone I was. I ended up at a diner across town, same one I used to go to with my ex before everything got complicated. I sat in the far booth to the back of the wall, eyes on the door, didn't eat, just sip coffee and pretended I was still part of the world. A woman walked in, had to be in mid-50s, long gray sweater. She ordered tea, sat across from me without asking. I didn't stop her. She looked like someone who didn't believe in small talk. She spoke after a long pause. "Something followed you." I said nothing. She stirred her tea, casually. "That whisper in your chest? You were born with it." Still silent. She smiled sadly. "Most people are, but they learn to ignore it. They call it fear, anxiety, paranoia, so it fades, but yours didn't." Now that got my attention. "Who are you?" She shrugged. "Someone who listened too late." Pulled a photo from my bag and slid across the table. I nearly dropped my cup. It was a photo of Drew, but it wasn't recent. The date on it was 1997, but he looked exactly the same. Same face, same posture, same distant stare. It's like he hadn't aged a day. His name wasn't Drew then, she said. Or the time before that. Or the time before that. I looked up, my mouth was dry. "Well, what the hell is he?" She looked out the window. "He's a listener, but not like you. He listens for what people ignore. That gut instinct. The voice inside, and when they shut it down long enough, he steps in." I shook my head. "That doesn't make any kind of sense." "It's not supposed to," she said. "It's not about logic, it's about silence. He doesn't speak much because he doesn't have to. He waits for you to betray yourself." The whisper surged in my chest. I felt sick. "Well, what happens when you do?" She looked at me with genuine pity. "You become like him, or what feeds him." I left the diner without paying, walked for hours. When I finally got back to the building, something felt, oddly enough, finished. Like whatever was going to happen had already happened. I unlocked my apartment door and stepped inside. The air was still. No flickering lights, no scratches, then breathing behind the walls. For a brief moment, I let myself hope. And maybe, just maybe, that woman was some deluded spiritualist. That maybe I was spiraling after all, just crazy. Then I saw the envelope on my coffee table. I hadn't left it there. Opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Last chance. Leave tonight. No signature. The whisper was back, but it wasn't pleading anymore. It was begging. So I made up my mind. I was leaving. For good this time. No second guessing. I just grabbed my bag, my phone, wallet, threw on the coat, didn't even lock the door behind me. But the elevator wouldn't come. As lucky as I am. Button stayed lit, but the floor indicator never moved. Stay as it is then. I turned down the hallway, and Drew was standing there. But he wasn't in my door this time. Inside my apartment, I hadn't heard him come in, hadn't heard the door even open. He was just there, somehow, some way. I backed up a step, heart pounding. Get out, I said. He didn't move, just looked around the room like it was his room or something. Then he spoke. You ignored it again. His voice was calm, soft, and barely audible. You had every chance to leave, every sign, every warning, but you told yourself you were overreacting. He took a step toward me, and now you let it in. I grabbed the nearest object, a book, and threw it at him. He didn't flinch. It passed through him like smoke. I stared, he smiled. You fed it. The whisper inside me became something else. Not fear, not instinct. It tore through me, a surge of heat and pressure that buckled my knees. I dropped to the floor gasping. My vision blurred, my ears rang, I heard footsteps all around me, but the room hadn't changed. Drew crouched down beside me. It's not about me, he said. It never was. Then he leaned in close and whispered something I'll never forget. You should have left the first time. Then he was gone. Just gone. No flash, no sound, no exit, just emptiness. And the whisper inside me, silent, for the first time in my life. It's been 6 months. The apartment is gone, leased out again to someone new. I don't know their name. I didn't even bother to ask. I live in a different city now. Smaller, quieter. But the quiet doesn't come from me anymore. Not like it used to. Now I listen to it, obsessively. The whisper inside me hasn't come back, not exactly anyway. But there's still something, I think, not a warning, not even a scream, but a memory of one. It's almost like when you lose a limb, but you still feel it twitch. Some nights I wake up and swear I can hear it, the soft tap, tap, tap of someone knocking inside a wall. Other nights I don't sleep at all, because I know what comes when you ignore it long enough. I looked into the history of the building. It's not online, not fully, but there are whispers if you know where to look. A fire in the 80s, someone vanished, a different tenant jumped off the roof, another was committed, and Drew never found because there was no record of anyone by that name ever living there. Maybe it was all in my head. Not in apartment 3D anyway. Not anywhere in the city, not even in the country. I've spoken to others now, people who've had that same instinct, like a string pulled tight across the chest, snap and vanish. They say that they used to hear something, used to know something, or used to listen. They're very ominous about it. But then they stopped. Some say they got better, but most didn't. Some said they saw him. They don't say any more than that. I carry a notebook now. I write down every gut feeling, no matter how small. Doesn't matter how irrational it sounds. If the air feels off, I leave the room. If a voice in my chest says turn around, I do. And if I hear knocking, I don't answer. There's a lesson here. I don't know if it'll reach anyone. I don't know if it's even supposed to, but I'll say it anyway. When your gut speaks, really speaks, you'll feel it in your chest and in your teeth. And the part of you that still remembers how it felt to be a child standing in the dark, frozen by something you couldn't see but knew was there. That voice is ancient, older than fear, smarter than reason. If you shut it out long enough, something else might start listening. And when it knocks, you'll know. The only question is whether you'll listen or not. Like I didn't. Just that one time. The echoes of the past still whisper in the dark. But for now, our journey ends here. If you've enjoyed this tale from the shadows, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. so you never miss what waits beyond the veil. Until next time, tread carefully and listen closely. The road is never truly silent.